Mandy, answer me. Why is there an elderly couple I don't recognize living in the $1 million Lakeside house I bought for you? The words didn't just fall, they detonated. Clink. The sound of my father George's silver knife hitting the porcelain plate was the only heartbeat in the room. I froze, my fork trembling halfway to my mouth, a bite of pumpkin pie suddenly tasting like ash. Beside me, my sister Ashley didn't just stop eating, she stopped breathing. Her hand, clutching a glass of expensive Chardonnay, began a rhythmic, uncontrollable shake. Across the table, my mother Sandra looked like she had seen a ghost, her face draining of color until it matched the white linen tablecloth. I looked up slowly. My grandmother Dorothy sat at the head of the table, her spine straight as a spear, her gaze cutting through the steam of the turkey like a jagged blade. She had been away for 5 years, but her presence still commanded the oxygen in the room. Grandma. My voice was a ghost of itself, a thin, wavering sound. What house? I remember the sun. It was blindingly bright on the day I walked across the stage at Columbia University, top of my class. I looked for my parents in the crowd. I saw them whispering to Ashley, who was scowling at her phone. When I finally met them, there was no, "I'm proud of you." My father just checked his watch and said, "Now that the school is over, don't expect us to carry your weight. You're on your own, Mandy." I remember feeling a strange hollow in my chest. I had a 3.9 GPA, 3 internship offers, and a heart full of hope. I didn't know then that the letters my grandmother was sending from London, letters containing the keys to a future I had earned, were being intercepted and burned in our backyard grill. "The Lakeside house, Mandy," Grandma repeated, her voice dropping an octave, becoming a low growl. "Lakeside Manor. I bought it for you the day you graduated. I wanted you to have a sanctuary while you built your career. I've been wiring maintenance fees every month, thousands of dollars. Yet, when I visited it this morning as a surprise, I found strangers. Mom, please." My mother Sandra finally found her voice, though it was shrill and desperate. "You're exhausted from the flight. The jet lag is playing tricks on your memory. Mandy doesn't have a house. Look at her, she's barely keeping it together." She pointed at me as if I were a piece of broken furniture. At that moment, I looked at my reflection in the silver gravy boat. I looked haggard, dark circles under my eyes from pulling double shifts at the diner and the call center. My clothes were from a thrift store. My bank balance this morning was exactly $12.50. It was 2 a.m. I was staring at a screen, apologizing to a stranger for their internet being down. My stomach was cramping because I'd skipped dinner to save $5. I called home, crying, asking my dad for a $100 loan to pay my rent. He laughed. "Mandy, you've always been so dramatic. Maybe you're just not cut out for the real world. Why can't you be stable like Ashley?" I believed him. I spent nights wondering if I was actually broken. If my failure to find a high-paying job despite my credentials was some inherent flaw in my soul. I didn't know that every time a high-end firm called my references, my father was the one picking up the phone, telling them his daughter was unreliable and undergoing psychiatric evaluation. "Safe from her poor decisions?" I whispered, the fury finally starting to boil under my skin. "Is that what you call it, Dad? While I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor, you were managing my asset?" "Mandy, shut up!" Ashley screamed, her mask of the perfect sister finally cracking. "You don't deserve that house. You're just a plain, boring loser. Kevin's parents needed a place to stay, and we were actually putting that property to good use. You should be thanking us for keeping it in the family." The room went silent. Ashley realized too late that she had just confessed. Grandma Dorothy didn't blink. She reached into her Hermes handbag and pulled out a stack of documents, sliding them across the table. "I didn't just go to the house, Ashley. I went to the county records office, and I saw the transfer deed, a gift from Mandy Hanson to Ashley Thompson, dated 3 years ago. Price, $1. "I never signed that," I said, my voice gaining strength. I grabbed the paper. The signature looked like mine, the loopy M, the sharp I. But I knew. I hadn't seen a legal document in years. Just then, the heavy oak doors of the dining room creaked open. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped into the light. He carried a leather briefcase that felt like it held the weight of a death sentence. "Mrs. Hanson," the man said, nodding to my grandmother. "The forensic handwriting report is ready, along with the digital printer footprints." This was Mr. Watson, my grandmother's personal attorney, the man who was about to dismantle my family's life, brick by brick. "George, Sandra, Ashley," Grandma said, rising to her feet, leaning on her cane like a queen on a throne. "Tonight, we aren't just eating turkey. We are going to witness the death of your greed. Mr. Watson, please show them the first gift they stole." My father tried to stand, to protest, but Mr. Watson pulled out a tablet and displayed a series of emails sent from my father's private server to every HR department that had ever interviewed me. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was a hidden bank account under my mother's maiden name, an account that had been siphoned my student loan repayments for 3 years. The silence in the dining room was so heavy I could hear the mechanical ticking of my father's expensive Rolex, a watch I now realized was likely bought with my own stolen future. Mr. Watson, the attorney, didn't waste a second. He snapped open his briefcase and the sound was like a gunshot. "Let's talk about the gift deed," Mr. Watson began, his voice devoid of emotion. He laid out a high-resolution scan of the document that supposedly gave Ashley my house for $1. "Miss Ashley, you claimed Mandy signed this 3 years ago, correct?" "Yes," Ashley barked, her voice cracking. "She was grateful. She knew she couldn't handle the taxes, so she gave it to me to manage." I remember being 7 years old. I had saved my allowance for 6 months to buy a limited edition watercolor set. The day I brought it home, Ashley broke the brushes and spilled the pigments. When I cried, my mother didn't scold her. She looked at me with that tired, disgusted expression and said, "Mandy, don't be so selfish. Ashley just wanted to play. Why do you always have to make everything about you?" That was the blueprint. My joy was selfishness. Ashley's theft was playing. "Interesting," Mr. Watson said, leaning forward, "because we ran a digital forensic analysis on the paper fibers. Specifically, we looked for the machine identification code, the yellow dots that every modern color laser printer embeds." My father, George, shifted in his seat, his eyes darting toward the study. "These microscopic dots," Mr. Watson continued, "record the serial number of the printer and the exact date and time the page was printed. Ashley, this document, supposedly signed 3 years ago, was actually printed exactly 6 months ago on the HP LaserJet currently sitting in your father's home office." The color drained from my father's face. He looked like a man watching his own execution. "And the signature?" I asked, looking directly at Ashley. "Did you enjoy practicing my handwriting?" I didn't," she stammered. "According to the handwriting expert," Mr. Watson interjected, "the tremors in the M and the Y are consistent with someone tracing a signature from an old high school yearbook, specifically your yearbook, Ashley. We found the indentations on the page. But we weren't done. That was just the house. I wanted them to feel the hunger I felt when I was skipping meals to pay back loans that, I now realized, were already paid. "Now, let's look at Mandy's student loans," Mr. Watson said, pulling out a thick stack of bank statements. "Mandy, you thought you were paying the Department of Education $800 a month for the last 3 years, didn't you?" "I worked 3 jobs for that money," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I hi and Mao. I literally sold my plasma to make sure I wouldn't default." "You didn't default, Mandy," Mr. Watson said softly. "But the money never reached the government. Your mother, Sandra, set up a ghost account with a name nearly identical to the loan servicer. Every cent you earned went directly into her vacation and jewelry fund." I remember a rainy Tuesday last November. I had $4 in my pocket. I stood in front of a vending machine for 10 minutes, debating between a bag of pretzels or a bus ticket home. I chose the ticket and walked 3 miles in the rain anyway because I was too lightheaded to stand. I called my mom that night, barely able to speak from exhaustion. She told me she had just bought a new diamond tennis bracelet to celebrate Ashley's anniversary. "Work harder, Mandy," she had said. "Success isn't for the lazy." A tennis bracelet? I looked at my mother. Her hands were covering her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. "You bought jewelry while I was debating if I could afford a bagel?" "Mandy, it was an investment," my mother sobbed. "We were going to give it back to you eventually. We just thought you weren't ready for that kind of money." "Ready?" My grandmother Dorothy slammed her cane on the floor. "She was ready to survive on nothing while you leeches bled her dry. And you, Ashley, $5,000 a month. That's what Kevin's parents were paying you in rent for a house you didn't own." "It was maintenance!" Ashley screamed, her face contorting into something ugly. "The pool, the landscaping, it costs money." "The maintenance fees were being paid by me from London, Ashley," Grandma said coldly. "I have the wire transfer receipts. You weren't maintaining the house. You were laundering the rent." My father tried to stand up, his face purple with rage. "This is a family matter. You can't do this. You're destroying our lives over some accounting errors." "Errors?" Mr. Watson smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "George, I've already sent the digital forensics and the bank records to the district attorney's office. And there's one more thing. The emails." I looked at the tablet. It was a list of every job I had ever applied for. And next to them were copies of anonymous tips sent from my father's IP address. "To whom it may concern, regarding Mandy Hansen's application, we feel it's our duty to inform you she suffers from severe, untreated bipolar disorder and has a history of workplace theft. We are family friends and wish to remain anonymous." "You didn't just steal my money," I whispered, the tears finally falling. "You stole my identity. You killed my career before it even started. Why? Just to keep me poor enough to control?" My father didn't answer. He couldn't. The sheriff's sirens were already wailing in the distance, echoing through the quiet, wealthy neighborhood. The red and blue lights of the sheriff's cruisers strobed against the dining room windows, turning the Thanksgiving feast into a crime scene. My father was still screaming about family loyalty, but the sound was hollow, like wind howling through a graveyard. "George Hansen, Sandra Hansen, and Ashley Thompson," the lead officer announced, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You are under arrest for grand larceny, forgery of private documents, and identity theft." The clicking of the handcuffs was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. My mother began to wail, a high, thin sound of a woman who had finally run out of lies. "Mandy, tell them it's a mistake," she sobbed, lunging toward me. "We're your parents. You're destroying your own blood." I stepped back, my grandmother's hand firm on my shoulder. "No, Mom," I said, and my voice steady. "You destroyed the blood when you started charging me for the air I breathe while you sat on a $1 million throne I paid for." Suddenly, the back door burst open. It was Kevin, Ashley's husband, and his parents, the elderly couple who had been living in my house. They looked bewildered, their faces pale in the harsh police lights. "Ashley, what's going on?" Kevin's father asked, looking at the handcuffs. "The police were at the Lakeside house. They told us we're being evicted." "Kevin, help me!" Ashley screamed. But Mr. Watson stepped forward, handing Kevin a folder. "Mr. Thompson, your wife has been charging your parents $5,000 a month in rent for a property she never owned. She forged the deeds. Your parents are currently occupying a stolen asset." The look on Kevin's face wasn't one of anger. It was pure, unadulterated disgust. He looked at Ashley as if she were a stranger. "You used my parents? You took their retirement money for a house that wasn't even yours?" "I did it for us, Kevin." "There is no us anymore," Kevin whispered. He turned his back on her, and for the first time that night, Ashley's face showed real terror. She hadn't just lost the house, she had lost her pawn. As the officers began to lead them away, Grandma Dorothy tapped her cane twice on the floor. "Wait," she commanded. She turned to Mr. Watson. "Read the final amendment." The room went deathly still. "As of this evening," Mr. Watson read, Mrs. Dorothy Hanson has officially revoked all inheritance rights for George, Sandra, and Ashley Hanson. Furthermore, a civil suit has been filed for the restitution of $2 million in lost wages, stolen rent, and emotional damages. If the sum is not paid within 48 hours, we will move to seize all assets, including this primary residence and George's investment accounts. My father collapsed into his chair. "Mom, you're making us homeless." "No, George," Grandma replied, her eyes like flint. "I'm making you independent. Isn't that what you told Mandy? That hardship builds character?" I am standing on the deck of Lakeside Manor. The air smells of pine and fresh water. This is no longer a stolen asset. It is my home. It took 6 months of legal battles to clear my name. The mental instability tags were scrubbed from my records after Mr. Watson proved the source of the emails. When the truth came out, the firms that had rejected me reached out with apologies and job offers, but I didn't take them. I started my own firm, Lakeside Financial Justice. I help young adults who have been financially abused by their guardians. I turned my $12.50 balance into a beacon of hope for others. My schedule is booked for a year. People ask me if I ever hear from them. My father is working a night shift security job to pay off the $2 million debt. My mother lives in a tiny studio apartment, still blaming the world for her bad luck. Ashley is serving her second year of a 3-year sentence for forgery. Do I feel guilty? No, because every morning I sit by the fireplace with Grandma Dorothy. We drink tea and watch the mist rise off the lake. We talk about the 3 years we lost, but more importantly, we talk about the decades we have left. The lesson I learned wasn't about money. It was about the value of a soul. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. If you're watching this and you feel like you're drowning, look at your hands. They are yours. Your life is yours. And no matter how many locks they put on the door, the truth has a way of finding the key. I'm Mandy Hanson, and I am finally, truly home. If this story resonated with you, or if you faced similar betrayals, share your story in the comments. Let's build a community where the truth is never silenced. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice.